Hey everyone, it's Val the Voice Johnson, and I'm here with a special guest. It's kind of I like to call it the precursor to our weekly entertainment show, but isn't it wonderful when you can talk to someone that's actually worked in entertainment, like they have a real grasp of how that goes? Well, actually, we'll be coming back later in the hour for our regular talk on Tuesdays, but let's chop it up and we'll do that right after this. Here we go. Woo-hoo. All right. I am Val the Voice Johnson, and welcome, welcome, welcome. And guys, give us a shout in the chat if you're there. I have I have the distinct honor of bringing on someone that I am learning from how to write, how to create, and then someone that knows how to fundraise when it comes to producing a project. There have been many of us that have operated in the space of producing for either television, for the stage, and for screen, and it's tough. It's a industry that is very challenging depending on how you approach it. However, if you're a person that is fired up and you know your talent, you believe in your talent, it's like, that's this young lady. And I have to say that I'm honored to have her here because she is an award-winning playwright, 24-time award-winning playwright for the winning stage play All My Struggles and The Wedding Plan. And this has been sold out at the world famous Apollo Theater. She can tell you more about it than that. But most of all, I like to consider her my mentor and also a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Monique Lisa Johnson. Hello, there she is. Hey,
Hey Val, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. I see someone is here saying hello. It's April.
Hey April.
Hey, how you doing?
I just love her.
Oh my goodness. I am excited about that. Well, you know what? Here it is. A lot of folks don't know what it takes to write and produce for the stage. Talk to us about your journey and what led you to writing and producing for stage plays first.
Okay, well, I thought, you know what, I was doing plays in my parents' backyard for so long. That's where I thought all
Oh.
plays started. I thought
Mhm.
you start off in the backyard and then from the backyard you go to Broadway. No one told me that, no, there's a little bit more in between your parents' backyard and Broadway. But for me, I love the idea of stories coming to life. I didn't know at the time because I produced my first play at 7, and I didn't know at the time that at
Oh.
7 years of age that they say until someone pays you to do something, you're not considered a professional. Well, I charged everybody 5 cents, and I made $1.05 that day. So at 7 years old, I became a professional playwright, and I did
Mhm.
get the shower curtain from the bathroom without permission from my parents. And I did tie a string to the side of the house and the other side to a fence with a stick so it'd be even. And so that is where I coerced the neighborhood kids into acting out a play that I wrote, one act play, maybe 4 rehearsals, and charged their parents 5 cents to see their own child. So been doing that for a long time. How I got to Broadway, off Broadway situation was that in 2008, I decided after 20 plus years of helping everyone else with their production, stage crew, stage manager, sound, audio, lighting, casting, craft services, I decided that I was just going to write my own production. And that's what I did. I sat down by my fireplace for 9 weeks and I wrote a 114 page, 8.5 by 11 script, and had that, edited down until about 80, maybe 84 pages, about 84 pages. And there
Mhm.
was my first full-fledged production, professional production. And so it took me 9 weeks, nine
Okay.
weeks of writing every day, morning to night. And at the time, I think for me, I was more excited about the casting to see who would step into the characters and embody them. And so for me, I did that. So 9 weeks of writing. So by March of 2008, I'm sorry, March of 2009, it only took me 2 months to cast. Like I was calling people because I really needed strong singers. I needed people who could jump into different characters. And I had the privilege before I did that, I had the privilege of being mentored by Samuel E. Wright, who is the original Mufasa on Broadway, Lion King.
Oh.
He also played the crab in The Little Mermaid, Sebastian, and he also played Rafiki, and he's Grammy nominated. So he was my mentor. At the time, my ex husband and I, we went to audition for a play that he was doing in a town not
Mhm.
far from us. And I went in to read the line of the waitress, which is you're in or out, close the door. That's it. That's all I wanted to do. Just read that. I read that line and ended up with the starring role. Don't ask. Don't ask. Don't. Yeah,
Wow.
got the starring role, and so I was playing a backslidden preacher in the play The Grapes of Wrath, and having him direct me and show me how to direct. And even though I had a degree in it, it was nothing like working with Samuel E. Wright. Nothing, no, nothing can compare to working with someone who can jump into characters like that. So that's the journey. And so the first
Wow.
performance, 600 people showed up at my first performance of a sold out the White Plains Performing Arts Center, and it was on from there. It was on from there.
Oh my gosh, and I'm now I'm knowing the actors, and now the actor's face is coming into my brain, and Samuel L. Wright, he unfortunately just left us a couple of years ago, is that correct?
It was the end of, I want to say the end of 2021. The end of
Oh my
2021. Yeah,
gosh, yeah,
yeah.
I
He had
remember
cancer.
him.
Yeah, he had cancer.
Okay, I remember him, and he was in this this is me thinking back to the Cosby Show. He was in a very powerful episode of the Cosby Show, and I remember that episode bringing me to tears because it was
Yes.
something that was wrong. I don't know if you remember that episode,
I do
right?
remember it was his daughter, and he found
Mhm.
out that she was using drugs. And so he
Right.
went to his friend to
Mhm.
find out what should he do, and he broke down because he didn't see that as part of their life. And I didn't know at the time when I saw the episode that he would become my mentor. So I
Um,
just saw the brilliance of his work, and that was a very emotional episode. Yeah, it was a very
yes.
emotional episode. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely.
So
But he was a beast.
yeah, because a lot of the folks that produce plays, I think about Shelley E. Wright, David E. Talbert, these guys, when they went and produced, sometimes some of the first works didn't do well. In fact, very famously, Tyler Perry said that the very first play that he produced didn't work. What was the difference? Was it the mentor? You think it was the mentorships? Was it your
Um,
drive? What was it?
No, I think, Tyler Perry's first play, I know, have been changed. What
Hmm.
happens is sometimes we put so much money into the production that we forget that you also have to promote it. So I don't know if he had
Um,
the money to promote it. And so what happened, he got, the Sounds of Blackness involved. He got different people involved that he could, have as part of it. But I don't know if he was able to put it out enough. And so someone that I know who was encouraged to come out and see the play actually went to see the play, loved it. Tyler ended up walking into the role of Medea at the last minute because the person who was supposed to play Medea walked out, and the
yeah.
person that I know was there and decided to really promote it. So you don't hear much about him, but there would be no Tyler Perry if it wasn't for this person because he took a chance on an unknown playwright who was really writing from his own pain. So I think that I don't want to say the difference is just, I think for me, I prepared. I prepared. I literally prepared. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the money at the time, but I did 6 side hustles for 18 months and saved $115,000. And so I prepared
Wow.
myself, and a lot of people
Wow.
are not willing to do that. So going out the gate, I knew I had the money to do what I needed to do. And so that's what I did. But, I'm talking about no hair done, no nails done, no eating out, no movies, nothing. I literally was, living in a $1.5 million house. And
Mhm.
literally, my kids were like, "Are we poor?" And I said, "No." I said, "But there's something that we have to do. And whatever it
Mhm.
is, we're going to start putting the money away." And so it took me just shy of 18 months, but $115,000 later, I was able to do the production without having to skimp and scrimp, which is why, I was able to do what I did. And the Apollo Theater, the way that came, I was
Yeah.
actually promoting my production in Harlem. I was promoting it, even though it was going to be in White Plains, New York. Um,
Mhm.
and I said, you know what, I need to go to the restroom. So I say, this is going to become a book, How a Trip to the Bathroom enabled me to sell out the world famous Apollo Theater.
There
So
you go.
I needed to go to the restroom. And so I said, what better place than the theater? I love the theater. I love being at the
Mhm.
Apollo. Been at it lots of times. And so when I went in, as I was coming out, Mr. Billy Mitchell, who's called Mr. Apollo, he saw my T-shirt because I'm very into branding, and my T-shirt had the name of my play on it. And everyone that was with me, same thing. They all had T-shirts that said "All My Struggles." And he said, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "It's a stage play." And he said, "Well, why don't you bring it here?" He said it so easily, as though he had just offered me a cup of coffee. And I
Right.
answered him just as easy, like, "Yeah, why not?" And
Yeah.
so he didn't say that it's 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 for the day. He didn't say
Mhm.
that part. I think he missed that part. But yeah, but I did. And so it must have been 6 months later. I was opening part two of the play at the Apollo Theater, and the 1 year
Wow.
anniversary of the first play. So I sold out the Apollo 4 times in the same year. And then in the fifth year, sold it out. Yeah. But
Yeah.
no investors. I had one person who was like, well, I was like, can you help me with this? And they helped me with that. But no investors, no radio, nothing. Just yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what's very fascinating is that you I know you walked right past it very quickly. You saved up, did 6 side hustles, $115,000. Like that's no feat. That's an unbelievable feat for someone, and it's believable. Believe me, it's believable, but you put your mind to it, you're like, "This is the goal."
Right.
And, for I don't know how it works in in plays and definitely in stage productions. People always say there's a whole lot of red tape you got to go through, especially if you want to have something produced on Broadway or off Broadway. I
Mhm.
would we consider Apollo off Broadway because it's not directly where all the
No,
plays are?
no.
Okay.
Broadway, it's not
Mhm.
where it is, it's how many seats. A
That's what
Broadway
I thought.
theater is
Mhm.
750 seats or more.
Okay.
But there is a thing called off Broadway and off Broadway. So there are,
Mhm.
but really for Broadway, it's the amount of seats. And
Okay.
being in New York City, people think Theater Row and they think downtown, in the 40s. But there are theater like the Apollo Theater seats 1,521 people. So that's not considered like, that's a major venue. And because it's such a major venue, you're going to have all the celebrities. When I did my first tour backstage, they showed me where the
Mhm.
Supremes slept. They showed me where the
Ah,
Jackson 5 slept. And
right.
Billy Mitchell, who's the person who asked me and said, why don't I bring my play here? He was the one picking them up from the airport. Gladys Knight, the Temptations. I mean,
Wow.
I would never consider that not a Broadway theater for the fact that it had so much celebrity. James Brown, and then Michael Jackson as an adult. That's history.
Mhm.
You can't. There's nothing you can do about that. You can't fake that. You can't fake that. That is like to see and to see your play in the marquee. I've gotten to see that
Mm.
so many times. That's huge to see my name in lights with the name of my play, and then across it sold out. Come on, that was surreal. That was surreal. It was surreal.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you grew up in the Bronx, and what I know from just conversations I've had with you one on one and then on other virtual stages is that people before they were famous, you knew them. They lived down the street from you.
Oh,
But
yes.
for but your first experience in either being in front of the camera or acting was what was that like? What was that first
Um,
experience?
Beach Street. Beach
Ah,
Street,
okay.
1982, Beach Street. That was
Mhm.
my first opportunity to try out the acting chops, but in a hip hop movie. Can you imagine a
I
hip hop
know.
movie? Yeah, Beach Street. I was a what they call extra, but a extra, which means that you see me in specific scenes because I'm running across the street. I'm standing in the front. Even the breakdance scenes, I'm right there. I'm next to Ray Don Chung. I'm next to Guy. Um, oh, guy's last name, Ruby D's son, Ruby D and Ossie Davis's son,
Mhm.
Guy Davis.
Guy
So
Davis.
I'm,
Yep.
I'm, I'm next to Guy Davis. I'm
Mhm.
there with Harry Belafonte. A lot of people don't know he was one of the producers. So
Right.
Michael Holman, who was also a guest on one of our shows, the New York City Breakers, he managed them, and so I
Wow.
did television with them. So that was my first experience, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was a teenager, and it was like, wow, because you don't know you're making history. You don't know.
Yeah,
You don't
I
know. You really
know.
don't know. I mean, the New York City Breakers and the Rocksteady Crew and Crazy Legs and Africa Bambaataa, the Treacherous
Mhm.
Three. I mean, we're all like at the Roxy. At the time it was called the Roxy, and we're
Mhm.
filming a movie with the legendary Harry Belafonte. Come on,
I know.
you
And
don't know this.
I got a chance, one of the rare people that I got a chance to meet, was a couple of years ago. I met Harry Belafonte, and they literally brought him in, and, I was coordinating a picture, and a lot of people were just kind of sitting at his feet because they just wanted to know, because there's just so much history that's in his mind and how it goes. We have Mark Lee. He's got a question for you. He said, did you ever work with the legendary Garland Lee Thompson of New York or the
Oh
Larry Leon
wow,
Hamilton? Mhm.
I
The
haven't
National
heard
Black
those names in so long. I didn't work with either. I knew who they were because I also
Mhm.
brought my production there, but I do remember the National Black Theater Festival was, I
Mhm.
mean, you had to be accepted into the festival. That was no easy feat. But I do remember hearing about them and what they were doing. And I did the DC Theater Black Festival. I brought my
Ah,
production there. But
mhm.
when the National Black Theater Festival was really big and everybody was going, I was probably too young to really like bring a production there. But
Mhm.
it and they did turn down Tyler Perry. Just
Oh,
to put it
wow.
out there.
To be
They
real.
turned him down. They were like, sorry, we don't do Chitlin circuit buffoonery.
Oh,
They turned him down.
no.
Yeah, yeah. And now I guess I guess they're sorry.
I think
They're sorry.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it's been an experience. It has been. And I've done
Mhm.
over 200 productions. So it's been experience. And I've been in theaters, the Orlando Shakespeare Theater,
Mhm.
there's a beautiful theater in Atlanta. It was the first marquee I had where
Fox?
we drove up. It's the Haren or Her, I don't know. I took a picture of it.
Mhm.
It's way down my timeline on Facebook. I just tell you that
Okay.
right now, way down the timeline. But it was the first marquee. That was the first marquee.
Wow.
I do have to say that. But getting back to hip hop, that was Beat Street. That was the first movie I ever did. Um, the first opportunity to be around people who were I grew up with in my neighborhood. Africa
Exactly.
Bambaataa. Africa Bambaataa
Mhm.
was like, so this is my house. His building was right there to the left of me, Mark Terrace. And so I would see Bam all the time, and he would wave. Who's this little kid? I would wave. He'd wave. No big deal. Um, I think I mentioned Christopher Williams was my neighbor. Our
Mhm.
We shared a fence, so literally my neighbor for 12 years. We grew up together. And Stacey Dash, I didn't know her, but they when they dated, I'd see them. So I a lot of people, Cool Herc. The Godfather, the
The
originator.
Godfather, the
I
original.
would be walking to
Mhm.
ballet school, and he would be
Wow.
walking towards there was a club, I think it was called the Black Door. I'm not sure because I was too young to go to a club, but I would see him
Mhm.
with crates, not knowing that they were albums. Like I knew what an album was, but because they
Wow.
were in crates, I could only see the outline of the crate. And he
Mhm.
would be on his way to DJ and set up for a club, and I'd be walking to ballet school, and I would just say hi, and he'd say hi. I didn't know. I didn't know. I did not know that I was a part of history, history of hip hop. I started rapping at probably 15, 14, 15.
Yeah. And the one thing that I know, and I'll share this. You are featured as a picture of you in the African American Museum, Smithsonian in Washington, DC.
In
Yeah.
the African American Museum in DC, the
Mhm.
Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx, and the Smithsonian Museum. But it's
Mhm.
not a picture, it's actually the TV show that I did with the New York City Breakers, with Run DMC, with the Treacherous Three, with
Mhm.
Shannon, who did Let the Music Play. Um,
Wow.
Literally, it was the first hip hop TV show, and they have the whole
Mhm.
scene with me in it. Yeah, they have the scene in and I walked in and I'm facing Tupac, and to my left is Biggie, and then I turn around and I see myself on on the TV monitor, and
Wow.
I'm like, that's me. So
Oh my
it was,
gosh.
yeah, that was interesting. And then on the opposite wall, kind of to the side of where I was all the women of hip hop. You had Queen Latifah, Moni Love, Yo Yo. You had Salt and Pepper. And Salt and Pepper, I used to go with them to do. They used to do public access. So I'd be in the studio with them, and we'd be talking. Cheryl and I, Sandy and I, would be talking. And their first major tour that they came off of, Cheryl was dating Herbie Lovebug, who was their producer. And so I
Mhm.
had a meeting with him, and here she comes down the steps. She's like, "Hey," so you really don't know. You really don't know. You know, you really don't know. I did a movie with Chris Rock. He was unknown at the time. He was in Crush
Mhm.
Group. He was in
And
Crush Group.
and this is and all of this history and your background, and then you decide, you know what, I want to do plays. I'm gonna write, I'm gonna produce them, I'm gonna actually put that out there and make it happen. And the one thing that you really remember about all my struggles, if you were to say the one thing that stood out to you the most about that production, what was it?
I want to say it's a scene that I wrote between the mother and daughter,
Okay.
and it's a tearjerker because
Mhm.
the daughter and the mother have like kind of like a tumultuous relationship, and the
Mhm.
daughter's pleading with her mother to let her sing, to give her an opportunity to give her an opportunity to just shine. And then she keeps reminding her that her dad didn't make it, and she really needed to focus on other things. And so I have both actors on opposite sides of the stage, and they're both crying out, but for different reasons. And the mother is like, "No, protect my child. I don't want her to do this. This is something that I just didn't see in her future." And the daughter is crying out, "Mom, I really need you to let me sing." And it's one of the most powerful scenes because at the end, there's like a roar, and you hear the audience, and you can tell it's an emotional scene. So that's a highlight, a very big highlight. Yeah, yeah, very emotional
Right.
and very memorable.
So one thing I'm learning with you now is how to write, and as I wrap up, how do you teach people how to tap into the writer that's living inside of them? How do you teach that? I don't know.
You know what? It's not so much teaching it, but it's
Mhm.
pulling out what's already there. I can't
Ah,
teach you how to write, but I
okay.
can I can guide you on using words that are going to help you to build that story. So I think a lot of times what happens is people look at the whole apple, and how do you eat an apple? One bite at a time. And that bite represents a word. And if you use that concept of just taking one bite at a time, one word at a time, you can add to that. You bite, you chew it up, and you add to it.
Mhm.
And by the time you finish, the book is finished, the apple's done. The apple's done. How do you eat
Mhm.
an elephant? One bite at a time.
One bite
We
at a
take
time.
little pieces because people think paragraphs, people think finished book, people think like by the time they get the idea for the book, they're already at a store trying to sell it. And I'm like, no, let's take let's take little
Mhm.
pieces and start to build. And if you take little pieces, before you know it, you are done. Before you
Wow.
know it, you are done. It's not so much that it's difficult or it's easy. It's what's inside of you and what are we building? Are we
Mhm.
building a novel? Are we building a memoir? We are building a self-help book. Are we building a technical book? Are we doing something for children? What are we building? If you don't know what you're building, you can't write. And if you don't know who you're writing for, you can't build,
Ah.
right? Right?
Exactly, exactly, and when people say that, I have something in me, I need to get it out, I wanna write it, and the best way to encourage that is it just to journal? Is it just to write it out, or how would
Well,
you advise that?
journaling is good, but it's random.
Okay.
Because when you journal, you're just purging however you feel, whatever's going on in your mind. It's
Mhm.
not necessarily structured. And that's okay because sometimes out of that chaos comes something beautiful, right?
Ah,
Right? So you don't necessarily want to stop someone from journaling, but it's not necessarily there may be no specific purpose. How do I say it? Like maybe like that. Like if you let's say you're journaling the day, this is what
okay.
happened today, but that may not be what you're writing about. But you may pull pieces of what you journaled and pull it into your story to help build it. But
Mm,
journaling is good because it helps you to get your ideas out. You flush out ideas or you keep track of what you've done. And when you keep track of what you've done, you can pull from that. It's like cherry picking. So now you can look at
oh,
your journals. There are people who have 50, 60, 70 journals. They've been doing it for years and they can look through it and pull out the pieces that make sense to the story they want to write. And it
right,
helps with memory. But journaling on a whole is just good and it's therapeutic. But if your book is a self help book, journaling your personal life is not necessarily going to help you with that self help book. Research is going to help you.
mhm,
Really taking your time and thinking about who the book is for. Are you speaking their language? So
right,
so I think journaling is good, but it has to have a deeper purpose and a deeper why in order for it to make sense for your book, right?
right, right. That's important. That's definitely important. If people wanted to find out more about how they can tap into the writer within them, where would they go?
Well, there's a link. I actually kicked off my six-part series today, just before this
Mhm,
interview, and I'm doing it live on Facebook. And for some people who
mhm,
may not be able to be present for all of them, I'm doing every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the month
mhm.
of April. And if you sign up, you can just grab the replays, leaving it up for 72 hours. That's free 99, free 99 for 72 hours, and then after that the six-part series, you'll get access to the entire series for $37. And the reason why I'm doing that is because really, and if you look at the title, I'll move to the side, it's how to write a book and market it after a pandemic. So I understand, I'm
Wow,
sensitive to the fact that a lot of people, because of the pandemic, didn't get an opportunity to really tap into what they wanted. They were more concerned about all the other things happening. But right now, what we're going to do is through this series, start to write that book and really take that deep dive into what the book should be about. Who is your audience? And when you find out who
mhm,
your audience is, what do you want to tell them? And where's your inspiration coming from? And can you avoid imposter syndrome? Can you avoid feeling indecisive? Can you avoid feeling unworthy? So these are the things we're talking about so that we can build the stories that we need to build. And if it is a memoir, remember the story is about you, but it doesn't
right.
belong to you. It doesn't belong to you at all.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm currently being mentored by Monique. I'm just gonna put it out there. I have a book that's coming out. I know
That's
it's
right.
in me.
I gave
I
you
have
homework too. I
yeah,
put a
I
lot
have
of work
yeah,
in.
I
Did you see
have
your homework?
homework too. I saw my homework. I sure did. So
There's
I'm
a
gonna be.
lot of homework in there.
But Monique, I want to thank you so much for coming to Interludes Extra and wanting and just sharing just a lot of your background and just the history of music and plays and production that you have gone through. And if you want to know more about Monique, I have her information. It's in the chat. And then also you are available. Your social media handles are
You-
on
Um,
LinkedIn. Yeah.
yes, I'm on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
On Facebook, it's Storytelling in 3D Academy on Facebook. So
Mhm.
Storytelling in 3D Academy.
Mhm.
On Instagram is at the Monique Lisa. LinkedIn it's Monique Lisa Johnson. So if you, I mean, if you look me up, you'll find me definitely. And then Mark also asked the question, did I get to meet Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis?
Mhm.
Ironically enough, um, Ossie Davis was the keynote speaker for my eighth grade graduation. I didn't know that I was going to meet his son, Guy
Mhm.
Davis, on the set of Crush Beach Street, and we would become
Mhm.
friends. So we were friends, and it was like I met your dad. It was that kind of thing. But Ruby Dee has always been one of my favorite actors, favorite actors. And
Yeah.
so I've been to their house in New Rochelle. I did get an opportunity to meet them years ago, but I met Ossie Davis at my graduation, and then I met Guy on set of Beach Street, and then I met Ruby Dee at her house. So I didn't. They were all three different places, three different people. But yes, I did get to meet them. I did get to meet them. Yeah.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Monique Lisa Johnson, thank you so much for joining us on Interludes.
Yes.
And we'll be somewhere in these clubhouse streets,
Yes, right.
having a good old time. But guys, I'm gonna jump over and start the show for Interludes Extra Talk on Tuesdays. I think Michael is waiting for me, but we're gonna close up right here. And guys, thank you so very much. And we are out.